Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another weather forecast. We are focusing on the tropics here. I do apologize for not posting yesterday. I actually was extremely busy, even though it was Saturday. But I'm here making a video here. But we got still tropical storm Beta in the Gulf of Mexico, possibly to make a U.S. landfall in Texas, but bring effects all the way up to Louisiana. Also, watching guess Teddy can very well skin Bermuda or go be around 50-ish miles away from Bermuda, and Bermuda is still under a tropical storm warning, so they can still probably see some effects here. Also, we have a new disturbance up there at a 60% chance, I believe, in the northern Atlantic as well, and obviously Wilfred expected to start dying down here. But this is generally what we have in the tropics right now. But before we get the video, please subscribe if you're new, hit the like button and the post notification icon. Without further ado, let's get this tropical forecast. So here's looking out at the National Hurricane Center, and as you do see, there is Beta right there, a tropical storm there at 60 miles an hour. And it's moving west-northwest at 3 miles an hour. So there is a definitely chance this could possibly get to a high-end tropical storm or a low-end hurricane because it's moving so slow. Obviously, the waters are extremely warm in the western Atlantic. We aren't seeing too much here. And obviously, it's got a big moisture bubble. So really, there's a chance this could possibly get to a high-end tropical storm to a low-end hurricane. But it's sitting here at 97 millibars. And that's still a very low pressure for being 60 miles an hour. 997 millibars is pretty good for being 60 miles an hour. But it's moving west-northwest at 3 miles an hour, so it's going to be bringing potentially some big flooding for portions of Texas and Louisiana because it is moving so slow. And actually, we're already seeing tropical storm winds being felt as far north as Louisiana because of the very large wind field. As you see, there is Hurricane Teddy there at 105 miles an hour, so continuing to weaken, but still a very strong hurricane. Moving west-northwest at 12 miles an hour. So it's going west-northwest, and then it'll start taking that northern turn. It's going to just miss Bermuda here. But Bermuda definitely possibly can see tropical storm winds almost guaranteed. And it's at 964 millibars, so it's continuing to weaken. Wilfred's still at a 40-mile-an-hour tropical storm. Won't get much stronger. It's going to really do nothing but weaken the next coming days. And then we got disturbance there at a 60% chance there in the northern Atlantic. So let's go check out the waters here in the western Atlantic here, and obviously this also includes Teddy. But as you see, this is actually where we have Beta at 30 degrees Celsius, and it's moving at 3 miles an hour. So I think there's definitely a chance this could very well be slightly stronger than expected. I think a low-end 75-mile-an-hour hurricane is definitely likely. I mean, we all saw how Sally went super slow and then strengthened to Category 2 before landfall. Remember, it was like 80 miles an hour, I believe. It was 100 miles an hour and still trying to weaken, and then it bumped up. I apologize. It was 80 miles an hour before landfall. It seemed like it was continuing to weaken, and then it bumped up to 105 miles an hour before landfall because it was moving 3 miles an hour, 2 miles an hour. Obviously, Teddy, so as you do see, it's around right here. It's in some cooler waters, which is why it's obviously weakening. We actually have a big area of 27 degrees Celsius here. As you see, we are expecting waters to cool down up in these general areas because obviously it's getting closer to October. Waters will slightly cool off here, but they will continue to stay very warm and significant here, but in the western Atlantic. But as you see, some decent waters temperatures for Teddy in its path, but we are going to be seeing up to 27 degrees Celsius, so it's 26 degrees Celsius to withstand a hurricane or a tropical cyclone. So it's going to be right on that line of being right on the that lowest number for withstanding a tropical cyclone. But it's not just the cooler waters. Obviously, there will be some dry air around the slow pressure. So since it is starting to weaken those cooler waters, it'll start to open up that low pressure more, and then that dry will just get in there and just mostly kill it. Here's looking at the ocean heat content index. Obviously, this is actually the amount of energy stored in the warm waters. In the warm waters of the Atlantic. And as you see, the higher the amount of energy, the most likely it is for a system to strengthen if it goes over those waters. And as you see, the worst of it is maintaining in the Western Caribbean. So if we have anything like a Marco that goes in like this, definitely a big threat. Also starting to see some really high ocean heat content or index in portions of the Bahama region. And also, look where it is, the Gulf of Mexico, starting to see some higher Gulf, the higher heat index there. So maybe there's a chance something can happen with beta, maybe slightly strengthening a bit more. But this is definitely the zone where you don't want to have storms. This is definitely where you don't want to have a storm, because it'll definitely blow up in that heat ocean content, because it's just going to blow up. There's so much energy stored in that water because it's so very warm. It's been so very warm for a while that something will definitely blow up if conditions are right, like no shear, no dry air. Alright, let's stop with that nonsense. Now let's talk about the real system that we actually came for the video for. As you see, there's Teddy Stepping trying to open up. As you see, that low pressure is definitely opening up that dry air. Obviously, you can kind of see that dry air coming right in there from the west. So yeah, there's definitely dry air. It's going to continue to open up here. So it's really just expected to come a bit more disorganized here. I mean, it's not really much. It's losing convection. I mean, it's expected to be it's expected to continue to weaken here. But as you see, wind field's pretty large, which is exactly why we will be seeing tropical storm warnings for Bermuda. And actually, if it does move this way, hurricane force winds might just avoid Bermuda. So hurricane watches, maybe hurricane warnings aren't out of the picture, because it's going to be just that hurricane wind field is pretty big. So the fact that it's going to get so close, it might just miss Bermuda. So I wouldn't doubt if hurricane watches are likely. Since the wind field is going to be getting smaller, though, because it's weakening, maybe hurricane warnings aren't super duper likely. But I mean, hurricane watches, because hurricane watches means there's a possibility you can get hurricane gusts. Hurricane warning is you will be seeing hurricane sustained. But you see, it's going to be going due north for a while. You're going to be a post-tropical hurricane heading for Nova Scotia. It's going to be making landfall at a post-tropical storm on Nova Scotia, and it's going to go through Newfoundland, and even still be a post-tropical cyclone near Greenland. I mean, that's going to be quite the long trip. Let's check out the intensity guidance. As you do see, sitting here still at Category 2, it's going to be kind of staying steady at that point. And then once it gets into those really cold waters, it's going to be becoming post-tropical and then really weakening here. But let's go check out now what we have here. This is now for tropical storm beta. I see that convection is actually more to the north of that low pressure. That low pressure is actually right here, and it's moving west-northwest. So that's going to be maybe a potential threat for the areas of the central Texas coast there. But has a decent amount of convection. Obviously, it's not impressive for a 60-mile-an-hour tropical storm, but obviously it's going to have to maybe take a little bit more time to actually get a lot more convection. I wouldn't doubt it would just become a lot more organized convection-wise. You see that convection strength started a lot more to the north, so it's trying to expand strength-wise, and also it's trying to expand now that it's trying to organize more. But that low pressure is kind of more to the south of that convection there, so could very well maybe start to see that convection kind of wrapping around there, and then at that point it can really start strengthening there, especially with the warm waters. Let's check out the wind field. The wind field is actually massive. It's actually a massive wind field here. Like, we're seeing tropical storm winds felt as far as the Louisiana coast already. I mean, that's how. And look where that low pressure is. It's right there in the far southern parts of the tropical storm winds. Like I said, the low pressure is more to the south of that convection, so it's more south of the vorticity, which means it's more south of all that strength. But I mean, we're already seeing for central areas all the way up to Morgan City, guys. I mean, that's about a good 200 miles or more north of that low pressure. So it's definitely a very large wind field. So we could be seeing some big effects felt even as far as like Louisiana, or even as far as like areas near like northern Texas, near the Oklahoma border, near Dallas. I mean, you guys can get really heavy rain, even some strong gusts. But we do have tropical storm watches for a portion of the areas near Corpus Christi, that far southern Texas coast. And then we have tropical storm warnings all the way up from south central coast of Texas all the way up to Morgan City there. So once again, Louisiana is under a tropical storm warning. The Galveston area, Texas City, I believe areas just outside Lake Charles, Morgan City. I mean, that's kind of where we have those tropical storm warnings. But as you see, expected to make landfall at around 1 a.m. Tuesday. So it's going to make landfall and possibly less than 48 hours here. So I mean, it's going to be speeding up a little bit more, but then slowing down rapidly before landfall, which is exactly what Sally did here. And then become a tropical depression there as far as even central Louisiana, and then post-tropical depression for portions of Mississippi there. Let's check out the storm surge here. As you see, we're going to be seeing some widespread storm surge all the way from the mouth of the Rio Grande all the way up to Ocean Springs, Mississippi. I mean, it's because of that tropical storm wind field so big, so it's going to bring in some really strong winds pushing against the sea, which is going to cause some rougher seas, which means some bigger waves, which means some waves will gradually get up into the general area of the inside into the coast. So only be seeing a minimal storm surge. Maximum storm surge will be 2 to 4 feet. That's all the way from Port Arkansas to Rockefeller Wildlife Refuge. So in this general area, expected 2 to 4 foot storm surge, and that's also for the Galveston Bay. Only 1 to 2 foot storm surge for mouth of Rio Grande and Baffin Bay, and then Corpus Christi Bay is expected to get possibly 1 to 3 foot storm surge, and then we're going to be seeing 1 to 3 foot storm surge for Lake Borge, Lake Maurepas, Vermilion Bay. This is just the general area. It's pretty widespread, as you can kind of see. But let's check out now more detail and zoomed in who has what. You see, like I said, we got those tropical storm watches for Corpus Christi. Actually, Corpus Christi is actually in both tropical storm warnings and watches, I believe so. Port Manfield just outside those tropical storm watches. It's including I-37 there. And you see the tropical storm warnings very widespread. Victoria, Texas, Freeport, Houston under those tropical storm warnings. Cameron, Morgan City, very, very widespread general area there. And then as you see now, let's check out now what we have with the tracks expected to make landfall there in the south central coast or the central coast of Texas, and then just go all the way up into a sharp northeastern turn into a portion of the Mississippi River. So maybe see some slight flooding threats for portions of the south central and southeast. So last but not least, to check out the GFS model. As you do see, 961 millibars, so continue to show steady weakening, and then we got 998 millibars there for beta. As you see, both show kind of strengthening. 958 though, so I don't know. GFS is showing it actually doing the opposite of strengthening. I mean, 946 millibars. It's kind of showing a 962 millibar hurricane making landfall. Post-tropical hurricane for Nova Scotia. I do not see that whatsoever. And then as you see, GFS is actually showing beta actually weakening, making landfall 1005 millibars. So it's kind of showing it doing the complete opposite and actually weakening here. And I see Wilfred it's gonna dot there, and then after that, really nothing interesting, nothing like no big tropical waves off Africa expected really to bring big threats here. I mean, we're gonna be kind of limited off Africa now. It's gonna be very little moisture coming out, and if it's a little bit, it'll get cut off by that dry air. So really, there's like no tropical waves expected to come off Africa. I mean, that was kind of it for September, tropical wave wise off Africa, but then that's going to leave the western Atlantic to do its job here. As you see, we're going to be seeing some bad signs of a ton of moisture coming off South America there, and that's exactly how Marco and Laura intensified a lot. As you see, I mean, there's going to be a ton of drier because of high pressure, but that big moisture is going to be this is some significant moisture here. I mean, we can see like another system kind of develop in the western Atlantic or western Caribbean, and then possibly head into the Gulf. So that's really that's kind of the biggest area of focus, possibly the western Atlantic or western Caribbean to be kind of exact. But I mean, look, there's like going to be very little to minimal tropical waves coming out of Africa, and if they do somewhat become a low pressure, then they're going to get cut off by dry air. But guys, I hope you guys did enjoy the video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and bye guys.